On July 4th, President Donald Trump signed into law the comprehensive budget plan, known as the One Big Beautiful Bill.
This bill will fuel massive economic growth and lift up the hardworking citizens who make this country run. The factory workers, farmers, mechanics, waiters, waitresses, police officers, firefighters, coal miners.
The president said there's hardly a livelihood that this bill would not benefit. Over the weekend, the House Ways and Means Committee held a hearing out at the Reagan Library in California to listen to some who praised this bill, like William Fulton, Vice President of Business Development at Robinson Helicopter Company, who testified that before the bill, his company faced two possible realities.
Either preservation of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that empowers companies like Robinson, or large tax increases that could further erode local business growth and job creation. I am here today because Congress chose the first path.
Democrats have kept up their opposition to the bill even after its passage and signing. California Congresswoman Judy Chu went on the record at that same Reagan Library hearing.
This bill is the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in modern history. Republicans are ripping health care away from 15 million Americans, the most ever in our nation's history.
The president and the Republican leadership are standing firm on the premise that this bill is good for America.
So over the last couple of days, we've had a couple of these filled hearings. And a filled hearing is when you take the committee out of Washington, D.C. to hear from real Americans.
Congressman Jason Smith represents Missouri's 8th District and serves as the chairman of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee.
The first stop was actually in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was the birthplace of the no tax on tips during President Trump's campaign. That's why we went there. That was the first place, and that was Friday morning. We heard from DoorDash employees. We heard from waiters. We heard from working moms of the benefits of no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, expanded child tax credit. These were all things that they testified on. The way that we created the One Big Beautiful Bill started 2.5 years ago, and it was the very first filled hearing that we had in Petersburg, West Virginia, at a lumber yard. And it was called State of America's Economy Appalachia, where we heard from working moms, small business owners, farmers, and coal miners of the issues that they were facing in today's economy. We then went on to Yukon, Oklahoma, to a farm to hear from oil and gas producers, farmers, and ranchers. We went to a factory in Peachtree City, Georgia. We've done 14 of these hearings outside of Washington, and that is what crafted the legislation that was in the One Big Beautiful Bill and what we delivered for the American people.
Are people already, even though it was signed just earlier this month, are people already excited seeing the benefits of it?
They're super excited. You know, I mentioned the DoorDash employee in Las Vegas. When she testified, she said no tax on tips will literally allow her to see her family more often. That is pretty powerful. When you had the paint foreman testify in Las Vegas, he said the harder you work, the more you're rewarded, and that's what this bill does. These are huge wins for the American people because this legislation was created by the American people. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors. We then also did another field hearing, as you mentioned, Saturday morning at the Reagan Library. I thought it was extremely important to be there to hear from farmers, small business owners, manufacturers, of the benefits of the One Big Beautiful Bill and how it will grow the economy.
When you say that, it brings me back to what we saw last week when we released a Fox News poll, because it somehow there is a sentiment of disagreement with what you just told me, because a lot of people in that Fox poll talked about what they thought about the One Big Beautiful Bill. 39% approved of it. 58% of registered voters said they were against it. Is there something that they're not seeing? Do they not know enough about it? What do you attribute that to?
Well, when you also look at the Harvard poll that just came out in the last 2 weeks, and Harvard's clearly not conservative by any means, the different items within the One Big Beautiful Bill, whether it was health savings accounts, whether it was an expanded child tax credit, whether it was an expansion in the standard deduction, whether it was no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors, all of those poll at 70% plus. According to Harvard, whether it was the creation of the Trump accounts, the investment savings account for newborns, these are things that are very popular. It's what the American people asked for. Unfortunately, you have the Democrats out there that are saying so many untruths. They say this bill's for the billionaires, but how many billionaires are paid on an hourly wage?
Does this mean that you and your Republican colleagues will have to get out there, maybe more than you are right now, maybe during this recess that you're in the middle of right now, and talk to your constituents and say, here's what we have put in front of you, because many voters see this maybe as something they will have in the back of their minds as midterms approach. Do you have to get out there and sell this?
We have to make sure that we inform the public of what's in the bill. Like I said, this is the largest tax cut in U.S. history. It's also the largest spending cut in U.S. history. And this bill has the most significant welfare reforms in U.S. history. These are all big wins that the American people have asked for. These are issues that poll very high. When I talk about the significant welfare reforms in this bill, it's requiring able-bodied, healthy adults with no children to work to receive government benefits. This is an 80% issue.
I read an op-ed statement from you that you, in addition to one of your Ways and Means subcommittee chairman, David Schweikert of Arizona, talking about the organ procurement standardizations and any kind of changes you want to make for that to make sure that there isn't any abuse of that process. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's all about?
For several months, the Ways and Means Committee has been looking into donor procurement organizations. These are very important organizations that are non-for-profits under the tax base. People rely on these organs whenever they need a new kidney, when they need a new heart. But unfortunately, we had several people come to, basically whistleblowers, to come to the committee to tell us of some very inappropriate activities with several of these procurement organizations, one being in Oklahoma, another one in New Jersey, one in Indiana, and another one that's very concerning in Florida, and how they may be violating their tax-exempt status, how they are being accused of using corporate planes for private use and then billing it for Medicare. So we're looking at all the fraud and the accusations that's within it. We're not going to go away on this.
I do want to follow up on something that broke just on Sunday, the president getting a deal with the European Union, a new trade deal that requires the European Union to buy hundreds of millions in energy from the U.S., spend hundreds of millions more with the U.S., a 15% tariff on goods entering the U.S. from the European Union. I know you probably haven't seen all the whats and wherefores on it just yet, but for those people who will look at President Trump and say, this is not a deal maker, and this, what he's calling one of the biggest deals ever struck to come along, should that tear away all of those people who say this man doesn't know what he's doing when he's making deals?
The facts speak for themselves. He had a very impressive an agreement that came with the United Kingdom, one with Indonesia. They just continue to fall in place. What they announced today with the European Union, it is a huge prize, given that the U.S. and European Union are each other's largest trading partners by far and account for a third of global trade in goods and services in the world. That's how big this is. And the trade agreement it's really great. If we can charge a 15% tariff on European goods coming into the United States, but they charge us a 0%, I think that one of the best negotiators in the world, Donald Trump, did very well.
The Ways and Means Committee is a very powerful committee. What's on the horizon? We talked about the organ procurement, how we're continuing to discuss the big, beautiful bill. What's on the horizon for the Ways and Means Committee? What are some of the things that you plan to look at over the next little while?
You know, the Ways and Means Committee has sole jurisdiction over all tax policy, over all trade policy, over all Social Security, and also half of healthcare and the majority of welfare programs. So it keeps us extremely busy. Now with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, we have that certainty with the tax policy. And so now we're focused more on the trade aspect. And as you see, we've been working with the administration hand in glove in these trade negotiations. I myself have spoken with more than 20 different countries in the last 6 weeks on these trade agreements. The trade agreement with Japan was huge. Vietnam, Indonesia, European Union, the United Kingdom, they're continuing to fall in place. There's numerous others that's coming forward. Australia, allowing U.S. beef to be considered safe in their country. This was a non-tariff barrier that the Australians had for years. Just in the last few days, they rescinded that. And this is something that I have spoken with the Australian government numerous times with, and I'm happy to see those changes.
So much on your plate. We will be following all of it. Jason Smith is a congressman from Missouri, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us on The Rundown.
Absolutely. Great to be with you.